Well, guys, the Lions squad has been announced for 2025. We have all the good news, the new captain coming in for 2025, some surprise picks going into the squad that I wasn't expecting, and a few omissions from the squad of players I did think were going to get in and didn't make the cut. So as I like to do, I haven't done one of these videos for Lions in 4 years. I think my channel had less than 100 subscribers the last time I was talking about Lions because we did the Lions tour of South Africa. So we'll dive into this one today. We're going to have a look at the squad, give my my little old opinions over here, go over some thoughts on the players picked and players who have missed out. Of course, let me know down in the comments section, who do you guys think got in luckily, maybe shouldn't have got in, and who would you have put in their place, or who's been left out that you think should belong in it. Obviously, we're going to have all sorts of different opinions. That's the joy of rugby and the internet, right? I'm probably going to annoy some of you with some of my opinions, so get ready for it. Let's start out then with let's start off talk about the captain, Maro Tejo. I had to cut him out a little bit here because the graphic is so massive. Shout out to Type 5 Rugby, to be fair, on Twitter for actually putting positional order of these players. I hate the all the graphics just have like alphabetical order for all the players. Positions, that's what we like to be able to see. But yeah, Maro Tejo's got his face a little bit cut off there. Sorry, Maro. Got in as the captain for 2025. If you're a betting person, you could have seen this one come in quite a way off. I kept a bit of an eye on odds on favourites and stuff. Maro Tejo was like 4-9. He was an absolute favourite since like the end of the Six Nations. And then Caelan Doris was like second place on like 5-4. It was quite a favourite for Maro Tejo. And then of course you had Doris with his shoulder injury. And then it was like, oh, he's going to miss quite a few minutes potentially of some of the Lions games. Do you want to be picking a captain who's going to end up, not playing the games, not having those minutes on the field? And then also, his injury was much worse than I thought it was. He's not even been picked for the team. So I feel a little bit sorry for Caelan Doris over there because I think he was nailed on, to be fair. We knew it was going to be a heavy Irish contingency going on this Lions tour with Andy Farrell has taken over the coach for this one. So I expected an Irish captain. Caelan Doris out. I don't really know who fills in as that second place void. I guess it might have been like James Ryan or Dan Sheehan. Maro Tejo's been with the Lions before. He's done some captaincy with England before. Even though I do think he gives away quite a few penalties, and that's not necessarily something you want from a captain. He's probably still the sort of the standout choice of who you're going to go for this tour. So him coming in as captain. But taking a look at the squad, and let's start out with the forwards. Go over now. I do have a little list on the side. I won't put it on screen, but of players I was picking for the Lions tour, as opposed to who I thought would get on, who I would have gone with. So there's some interesting crossovers of players that I was picking. Some that I got some changes for. So starting out then with the hookers, Dan Sheehan, Ronan Kelleher, Luke Cowan-Dickie. Absolutely thought Dan Sheehan was going to get in there. Probably a starting hooker, you would imagine, going into those Australia games. I also thought they'd probably have two Irish hookers, so Ronan Kelleher going in there. Luke Cowan-Dickie getting in surprised me. I had down Jamie George. I thought Jamie George was going to get in there as another one again. Ex-Lions player now as well. Got that experience playing those big games. And I don't know, performance-wise, I think I would align myself with thinking Jamie George would have got there. But Luke Cowan-Dickie comes in, probably for the sheer defensive effort that Cowan-Dickie can put in. He's pretty solid at just defending, and he's got some good chop tackles on him. Maybe that's why he's got in there. That was one of the first times that did surprise me going into this squad. Prop department, Andrew Porter, Ellis Genge, P.S. Schoeman, Xander Ferguson, Will Stewart, and Tadhg Furlong. Now, I was as these were coming out for the props, I was like, oh, this is basically exactly who I thought was going to be going in. Tadhg Furlong, though, was the only one that stood out to me as like, that's an interesting call, because Finlay Bealham was over with the Six Nations. Tadhg Furlong's been out with an injury for quite a while in the game time minutes and stuff. Now, solid scrummager, Tadhg Furlong. Finlay Bealham did have a few penalties against him at scrum time, and obviously Australia, big scrummaging team. Maybe they thought more reliable to have a strong scrummager who's not going to give away those penalties easy, as opposed to someone who I think around the park, Finlay Bealham might actually be better in sort of a general sense. So they've gone for Tadhg Furlong. I feel like that's a bit harsh for Finlay Bealham, who I think has done quite a lot right, to be fair. So a bit of a shame for him, but Tadhg Furlong getting back in the squad was another one that did surprise me. Second rows, Maro Tejo, Ollie Chesham, Tyke Byrne, Joe McCarthy, Scott Cummings, and James Ryan. Now, I expected Maro Tejo to get in. Ollie Chesham I also thought would get in. Tyke Byrne was another one. Joe McCarthy was one that I understand Andy Farrell over the Irish squad, That's his lock department. He wants to bring that in. He wants to reinforce the lines with players that he knows and can work with. I don't think Joe McCarthy had a good Six Nations. I think he's really struggling. A big penalty vacuum. We saw it in the Six. He got carded as well for just silly things. That is not the sort of thing you want to be doing with Australia. It's just things are going to let them into the game. I think they could have gone somewhere else there. I also didn't have Scott Cummings on my list. I did have a Scottish lock. I had Grant Gilchrist getting in there. Also gives his own little fair share of penalties with though. Scott Cummings getting in kind of surprised me, but I did have a Scottish lock in there. Where else do you go if you don't have Joe McCarthy? I did see that Courtney Laws had put his hand back up, who could play the 4-6 as well. I thought Courtney Laws potentially could have been one to have got back in there. I even thought you could stretch to David Jenkins, which I wasn't expecting a heavy Welsh, contingency get into this line. So I don't think any of us were really. But if there was a sort of area that maybe sort of David Jenkins just for the work rate, but also work in the air could be good. And I think penalties for Joe McCarthy. I don't know, a little bit shaky on that one, but he's obviously gone for the English partnership, the Irish partnership, and then James Ryan to fill in there. I've seen quite a bit of negativity about James Ryan getting picked into this. I think that's a good move, especially if you want to look at the subset of captains who's going to do the midweek games as captain if you don't want to risk Maro Itoje from injury. I think James Ryan could also step in there for captaincy roles. So I don't think James Ryan's a terrible pick. Back rows. Tom Curry, Josh van der Fleer, Henry Pollock getting in, Jack Conan, Ben Earl, and Jack Morgan. Now, I was watching the live stream. I had the live stream on in the background while I was in work and stuff. And Henry Pollock got the biggest cheer to get back into this one. And it was quite funny because it reminded me when we started doing these videos for the Lions tour for South Africa 4 years ago. I was just a young man. There was a lot of hype around that time of a young lad called Marcus Smith, a guy I'd never heard of, who was overachieving at club level, came on, made his debut for England, and then got flown straight out to the Lions. And I remember thinking, who is this guy? And he came on, he did okay. Henry Pollock's another one of those lads where, we got to see him make his debut against Wales in maybe one of the worst games for Wales ever. But he came on, he had, 2 tries from 2 touches. That's a great way to make your debut. Big performance, saw his Northampton performance up against Leinster. So when you go, yeah, he's doing well. He's like this tour's Marcus Smith now, the young lad, got a lot of social media hype being brought up, a lot of pressure on him to get in. But I've seen his reaction to it. He seems proper up for it and quite exciting. Jack Morgan, the only Welsh forward to have got in the squad, which again, weird online. So many people saying like Jack Morgan doesn't deserve to be there. Oh, there should be 0 players. I find it so weird. Like Jack Morgan is a really good back rower. And you can even look at it as going, well, the rest of the Wales team is doing so badly, he obviously stands out. But even I think beyond then, I think Jack Morgan is a superb player. He was the one Wales player I had for my Alliance team. He was nailed on. I think absolutely deserves to be in there. The only area for concern for this for me is a dedicated number 8. Ben Earl and Jack Conan can go at number 8. I even think Tom Curry can go at number 8. But Ben Earl and Jack Conan, you're probably looking at playing 8 across these tours. But Falatau, maybe you could have put Falatau in. It's okay. But Jack Willis was a big talking point. But over in France, and whether the game time was going to allow him to actually get in for the game. So, but Jack Willis could have gone in there as number 8. They obviously lost Caelan Doris through his injury, so that number 8's gone. Where else do you look? Maybe you could go for like a Jack Dempsey coming in at 8, just a hard carrying number 8. There's no dedicated 8, so they're going to have to move Jack Conan or Benno probably to that number 8 shirt. And I think that might be something that, you might want to sort of match up because Australia have some really, really big, powerful back row players. Harry Wilson, you've got Rob Valentini, you can do 6 and 8 as well. You kind of want to match that with physicality. Jack Conan and Ben Earl's got their own level of physicality, but that number 8 did jump out to me. Another area that sort of struck me looking at these forwards was like line out jumpers. Obviously, you're going to have your 2 locks that are going to want to get involved. The back rowers, though, when I look at these names for the back row, not a lot of other options in terms of that line out. Now, the Australian teams had some wobbly times over the last 2 years or so, but line outs is an area they have a couple of locks who are real nuisances and took on some really big teams and can really get involved with the line out and just mess up the ball, mess up the platform from you completely, and really take that away. You kind of want to have a secure lineup. They've gone for the captain of Maro Toje in the second row. Makes sense. Get those calls correct. Throwing wise, the Irish lineup throws haven't been particularly 100%ing, which is why, again, Jamie George percentage looked okay for the lineouts and stuff. So I thought maybe Jamie George would have got in there to make sure the secure throws. But losing like a third option, really, of not having your back rowers that can also be lifted, or not typically what I think of lifters in there, is also an interesting call. Unless they're going to look at moving someone like a Tyg Byrne into 6 and give you 2 other locks and have a little bit of fiddle about with that. Again, another one where Courtney Laws, even though where is he now? Div 2 over in France. But he, 6'4" position, could also get in the lineouts. So, might have been something to take a look at. I'm not sure what they're going to do with the, the sort of reserve bench of players to get in and what have you. Now the backs is something there's so much to get into with the backs, and I get very excited by this. So, scrum halves getting in. Alex Mitchell, James Gibson Park, Thomas Williams. Did not see Thomas Williams getting in this squad. That's no shade towards Thomas Williams. I thought I had Jack Morgan as the only Welsh player getting in. I thought Ben White was going to be the last scrum half. James Gibson Park was nailed on for me. I think he's the best scrum half in the world if we don't have Antoine Dupont playing. I honestly think he's so good. Thomas Williams, he's a good scrum half, but I think Ben White would have maybe offered a few other little things, especially with who I thought was maybe going to get in on the fly halves. But so fly halves area, Finn Smith, Finn Russell, Marcus Smith. Few people astonished that Prendergast wasn't there. I had no faith Prendergast was getting into this squad. A lot of people really like Finn Russell, and a lot of hype around Finn Russell. He's an incredible playmaker. Finn Russell for me is one of those players that if he's playing well and he owns it, they do well. If he has a bad game, it feels like a lot of stuff really begins to go wrong once you get there. And I did question Mark over Finn Russell whether he would get in or not, but he has still got in. For me, I'm looking at Finn Smith as being like a sort of starting fly half for me. I was so impressed with him over the Six Nations. Again, I saw that Northampton game as well. Just running the park well, picking the passes. He's such a good delayer on the pass to give it. He really holds his line well and waits for a tackler to come in before giving the pop pass. I kind of want to see Finn Smith have good minutes. But there was an interesting contrast there then, because what do you do with the scrum half, fly half setup? Because if you're going to put Finn Smith at fly half, I kind of want to see him paired with Alex Mitchell. Now, Alex Mitchell, I don't think is utilised very well at all in the England squad. When you watch Alex Mitchell play at Northampton, he seems to be a different player. So I can't assume it's him as a player not working well in the England team. I assume it's that the England setup doesn't allow Alex Mitchell to do things. But I kind of want to see Alex Mitchell and Finn Smith play off together then, because I think that could work really well with them. Similarly, I think James Gibson Park will work well with Finn Russell, because I think Finn Russell is one of those players who can control the game well, but just needs time. He needs time to make that decision. Gibson Park, having played alongside people like Johnny Sexton, another one who's just needs to organise himself, and he can do stuff very well. I think James Gibson Park partners well with Finn Russell, and I think Alex Mitchell partners well with Finn Smith. In your centre partnership, Sione Tuipulotu, Hugh Jones, Gary Ringrose, Bundy Aki. Scotland centre partnership, Irish partnership. This is who I had down as I think would get in. I would have had a tweak though from my own list. I'm glad Tuipulotu got in because the form was good. He went out with his injury and took a big blow. It kind of sounds a little bit cross because I said that same thing about Tyg Furlong. Wasn't there? Oh, I would have had Finlay Bealham. I honestly think having Tuipulotu to play alongside Hugh Jones is for me, your starting centre partnership. That's the people I want to see in this Lions squad. So I'm glad Tuipulotu still got in, and that injury didn't knock him down, even it sounds a bit sort of against what I said about Tyg Furlong and what have you. But I really think that partnership will work well. Gary Ringrose and Bundy Aki, of course they're going to be in. It is Andy Farrell's team. He's bringing as many of those boys through as he can. Gary Ringrose, again, another. It sounds like I'm harshing on the Irish boys. I'm not trying to do it. I'm just picking out the specific players I'm going to talk about. But Gary Ringrose, again, another one in the Six Nations. I was so underwhelmed by the tackle performances were so poor. Had his card from a poor tackle in one game as well. I had him in one of my fantasy rounds. Maybe in the last round, where he missed 100% of tackles. I saw his tackle stats for the Leinster Northampton game as well. It was five or six missed tackles in that one as well. And you think, as a centre, I think he's a great player, Guy Ringrose. I think he's been brilliant in past years, and I'm wondering now whether it's, can you ride a bit on the name of who you are to keep going? If you've got a centre partnership that's not going to be able to make those tackles, Australia have centres that will just go through you. Honestly, at this point, I would be looking at Robbie Henshaw to have got in for Gary Ringrose. Was my own opinion on this one, who would have got in. I don't think you're having a Welsh centre in there at all. And the English centres really didn't impress me over the Six Nations either. I personally would have gone for Robbie Henshaw over Gary Ringrose. I can see a lot of people having a problem with that, but hey, that's the internet. That's how it works. I would have liked to see Robbie Henshaw going alongside Gary Ringrose, because Robbie Henshaw could do 12 or 13, but I still would have had Tui Pelotu and Hugh Jones as my starting centre. I don't know. Bundy Aki's very good, but you want to see the two Scottish lads play together, right? And then in the back three, Tommy Freeman, Mac Hansen, Duan van der Merwe, James Lowe, Blair Kinghorn, Hugo Keenan, and Elliot Daly. Elliot Daly blew my mind. I couldn't believe he got into the squad, to be fair. So let's go through it. So Tommy Freeman, I think has got in on good form, and I think that's a good choice. Mac Hansen was one. I can see why Mac Hansen's in. They've done the Irish back three again. It's Andy Farrell. I saw people, by the way, online that were saying it's so biased that Andy Farrell's chosen all these Irish boys. Like, yeah, that's what you want, right? You've taken the best coach, or the highest performing team. You've taken their coach in the British and Irish, like, home nations. You've taken the best coach, moved him to the Lions job. He's going to bring the players with him that he has already worked with. It makes sense he's got the most Irish guys. I can't believe people are online to saying, like, it's so unfair, it's so biased. Yeah, you want him to have the players he knows how to work with, right? So I can understand it. Mac Hansen, James Lowe, Hugo Keenan all get in. It's the Irish back three. That setup is known. They know exactly what they're going to do with it, right? The only thing that got me is, as I got through this list, is the omission of Darcy Graham, who I had on my list. I thought Darcy Graham was in on this team. And I was like, who do I sort of take out for that? Now, Elliot Daly was one that surprised me as well. I assumed they would want a utility back who was going to cover a lot of different positions. Elliot Daly was, previous Lions tour. Elliot Daly, I don't know, I've sort of gone. I did think Tom Jordan might have got in on that because he could do 10, 12, 15, but also just as another kicking option. Elliot Daly at least offers you 10, winger, fullback, centre. He's basically every back position, right? But also has the long range kicking, which I do think helps him get into squads like this, just for late minute penalties, 79th minute, 60 metres out, bang. All right, yeah, I can see Elliot Daly squeezing in on those sorts of ways. Mac Hansen, as far as I'm aware, has still got his own little injury at the minute, as does Blair Kinghorn. They're hoping to just be like fit for the Lions tour. But Mac Hansen, I'm trying to think what's he going to offer to this that Darcy Graham isn't. And I couldn't really put a lot of sort of focus on why that would be. I think Darcy Graham overall is probably better in attack. Mac Hansen offers a lot because he likes to come into the midfield as well. He likes to put himself in attacking positions in the midfield. But so does Darcy Graham. And who are the people that are going to be making those choices of pass in the midfield? Well, it's going to be Finn Russell or Tui Pelotu. So who's going to read that better? Darcy Graham. It kind of fit for me that Darcy Graham belonged in this team. And if Darcy Graham could get in this squad, you then set yourself up with, you could basically have an entire Scottish back line, which, Scotland, not necessarily the highest performing team in World Rugby or anything, but the back line for Scotland is one of their strengths. The attack that the backs offer is great. And if you had Darcy Graham in, you have Finn Russell, Tui Pelotu, Hugh Jones, Van der Merwe, Darcy Graham, Chuck Kinghorn in. You've got the 5 Scottish backs. You can play an entire Scottish backline, even if you're not going to go up against Australia with it. The midweek games, you've got your full Scottish contingent that you could do something with. Those lads know how to play off each other, and you can work with it. Whereas now I'm thinking, like, what are they going to go with? Do you put because if you're going to have James Lowe, Hugo Keenan, Mac Hansen, you kind of load up with going Bundy Aki and Gary Ringrose and have the full Irish contingent, but then those guys have then got to play off either Finn Smith or Finn Russell, probably for me. So then you've got the English or the Scotland lads trying to work alongside these other players. Bundy Aki's a very different player to Tui Pelotu. That choice of pass might go differently, and trying to make it work. And I feel like that just would have offered a little bit more to have had the Scottish back line, being able to play together and adjust mid-game. Things don't always work out. Plan A doesn't always go right. Maybe those lads go, boys, Plan A's not working. Remember that thing we did over in Scotland? Let's swap to that and see if that, you can make that change on the fly then. I don't know, that might be one for me. And then Elliot Daly, yeah, I can see why he's got in, but sort of, it's a little bit tenuous. I think he's going to be in as like a bit of a super sub. I doubt Elliot Daly's going to be starting a lot of games for me. So yeah, overall, it's quite similar to what a team I was going to be expecting. Feels like I'm being a bit harsh to the Ireland boys. Not trying to be harsh to the Ireland boys. Like I said, I think Tyke Furlong could have seen Finlay Bealham get in. That's at least an Irish player coming in there. Guy Ringrose for Robbie Henshaw would have been another one I would have maybe liked to have seen that switch. And then Mac Hansen, I just think Darcy Graham offers the same and a bit more than Mac Hansen for me. And I could have seen Darcy Graham getting there, and I think he might feel a little bit sad. But there we are, guys. That's my thoughts on this Lion selection. Of course, let me know down in the comment section your thoughts on who's made the team, who shouldn't have been in the team, who's been left out that you think absolutely should have been in. So much to discuss and what have you. I'm looking forward to get a little bit into the Lions tour when it gets around to it. Sure, we've got some midnight games over here. I'll see you all next time, guys. Bye bye.